Welcome to another episode of That's Some Crazy Shit with Kelly and James. My name is Kelly and my co-host is Mr. James. What's up, dude?
I'm Mr. James and things are going well, my friend, here in the corner studio. Yeah.
So today we have a return guest. You know, it's really cool when guests come back. We must be doing something right because they want to come back.
Right, huh?
Right?
That's true.
So this time our comeback guest, our return guest is David Essel. And David is a motivational speaker, life coach, minister, author, radio, TV host, high energy.
Yeah.
You know, really like him. You know, last time he came on, we talked about a lot of things, mental health and things like that. And today I thought we were going to expand on that, but he actually took us in a totally different direction.
You know, and it's really cool that he did that, because that's exactly why we have our podcast, Kelly, is for what happened. So I don't want to elaborate too much. I want our listeners to really appreciate this one for what goes on.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think we should just get right to it.
Let's do it.
Welcome to That's Some Crazy Shit, our good friend, motivational speaker, life coach, author, minister, all around good guy, David Essel.
Are the best. I love working with you.
David, thank you so much for coming back to That's Some Crazy Shit. I'm glad to have you here. Welcome.
Kelly, James, great to be with you guys. And the last time we had so much fun. I know we're going to rock it this time as well.
So, you know, I wanted to talk about your book and some mental health, but you had talked about some paranormal crazy shit stuff that I thought we would talk about first, and that is you being visited by your mom.
Yeah. You know, guys, I've always had a very deep spiritual path. I was a pastor of a church for a while. I'm an all faiths minister. So my mind is extremely expanded. It always has been. You know, I don't believe there's just one way to anything. There's 1,000 passageways to wherever you want to get to. So, you know, when my mom and I had an incredibly tight relationship. Now, 0 to 18, not at all. I started out at 12, struggling with addiction. The greatest thing my mom ever did was she never kicked me out of the house. And it took a lot, I'm sure, for her to not want me gone at times, you know. But she really was something. And around 25 to 30, I started really appreciating everything my mom taught me. I mean, to this day, guys, I still put my clothes out for work the night before. I still make sure that my gym bag is in the car, just like my mom taught me when I was a little kid, you know, and lunch is made, or at least I know what my lunches are going to be for the next day. So, you know, we ended up really bonding, but the last couple years of her death were horrendous because she was in dementia, full-blown dementia. So, you know, I've been working this world for 43 years of personal growth. I think two of the worst diseases ever are ALS, or Lou Gehrig's disease, and then dementia. You know, we lost our mom for 2 years. She would have 15 minutes of lucidity a day. My brother would FaceTime me because I lived in another state. And, you know, my mom and I created a way to communicate. And she had the driest sense of humor in dementia. You couldn't see any facial expressions. She couldn't smile hardly, no facial expression. You didn't know, well, when she was mad, you could tell she was mad. But it was this really weird thing where I lost my mom. You know, I lost the essence of her. And then those 10 or 15 minutes would be just heaven on earth, where we would tease each other. You know, she would make a statement like, one of the last thing that I ever got a chance to tease her about is that they lived in upstate New York, and it was January. And so I said, Mom, I go, Terry, my brother, told me that you were out ice skiing on the lake behind a snowmobile for 2.5 hours yesterday. And she would look directly at the camera and she'd go, yes, David, I was. And I said, that's amazing that you would ski behind a snowmobile for 2.5 hours. But then he told me that you did it today, but you were only out there for 30 minutes. What's going on, Mom? And she'd go, well, David, there are many other people that want to skate and ski behind snowmobiles on the lake. I can't be the only one taking up the whole lake just for me. And she would look at me, guys, with that like just blank expression. But I could tell just by her comment that she was with me, you know? And so those are the most beautiful memories of 2 years of hell with my mom. So then when she passed January a year ago, so it's been a year and a half or so, January a year ago, she passed. And the first 10 months, you know, and I've taught grieving for 30 years, and I had no idea what grieving was until I lost my mom, being so close. It's a totally different ball game, you know? And so for 10 months, I suffered more than I've ever suffered my whole life. I still work, but I was in so much pain. And one night, after about 10 months had passed, my partner Mia's head is on my chest, and we're falling asleep at night, but I'm still very lucid. I could feel her head going up and down. And then all of a sudden, this big blank screen came in front of my eyes. And I thought for a second, maybe I'm dreaming, but I double checked. And so I'm seeing this big black screen in front of my eyes. And yet her head is going up and down on my chest. So I know I'm conscious. I know I'm not asleep. I can count the number of times her head is going up and down. All of a sudden, the screen lifted all the way to the ceiling. And then it looked like a dark hallway. A person walked forward into the light, and it was Jesus Christ. And he stared at me, and I stared at him, and he had this most beautiful expression on his face of compassion. He never said a word. So right now I'm going, okay, wait a minute. Here's Jesus Christ standing in front of me. Am I dreaming? And I go, and Mia's head is going up and down in my chest. So I'm connected, right? I go, okay, no, this is not a dream. I'm counting her head up, going up and down. And he didn't say a thing. The screen went black. And then when it came back up, my mother was standing there with the most incredible smile on her face. This most glorious, beautiful smile. And she said, "Oh, honey, David, it's okay. I'm doing okay. Actually, I'm doing great. I know you're having a really hard time." Now, at that time, I am crying hysterical tears. They're just streaming down my face. I can't believe. And, you know, I'm probably going to get emotional right now. I couldn't believe it was my mom. And I said, "Mom, this is you." And she said, "Yes, honey. Yes. And I want to tell you again, I'm doing great. There's no need to worry about me at all. I'm always with you. I'm never apart from you. Now, I have to go, honey. But just remember, you're never alone. I'm always right in your heart, right with you every day." And then the screen comes back down, and I jump out of my skin, and I started screaming, "Oh my God, was that a lucid dream? Was that an astral travel? Was that whatever?" And I want to tell you something. I probably would have questioned it. If Mia's head wasn't going up and down on my chest, I probably would have questioned the whole thing, is that I made it up. You know, you hear people all the time saying, "I think my mom or dad came last night," or "I think I saw them running around the corner, but they've been dead for 10 years, you know, and there's no one else there to verify it." Like, it was so verified, guys, that I knew it was real. And it was the first emotional break I got. But I want to mention this because I think this is crucial. Over the years, because I've worked with every religion imaginable, you know, there's all these different rules, I'll say, that different organized religion have. You know, the spirit can't stay in this physical world more than 30 days, 90 days, 120 days, a year. You know, I've heard all these comments that they must go and be away. They can't. I found that that's all a lie. I have found that we are eternally connected. There is no separation ever from a loved one that you desire to have that connection with. So then I started thinking, why was I so lucky? Why was I so blessed? And this was only one of several visits my mom made to me. Why me? Like, how is it that I get this? And I don't know if other people do. I don't hear people talking about this as much. Maybe they're afraid they're going to be judged. Maybe they're afraid they're going to be criticized. Maybe they're afraid they're going to be called crazy, you know, but I had this verification laying next to me, telling me that this was the real deal. This was it. So then I started thinking, well, you know, like, what else have I been doing? And this is what I want to share right now. I believe if we create gateways with loved ones who have passed over, that they're more than willing, more than anxious to be here and to help us and to calm us or to encourage us or whatever it might be. But we have to create gateways. So one of the gateways was I wrote to my mom every night in a journal, and I told her what I did that day. And I said, Mom, I know you already know this because you're always around me, but I'm going to tell you, this was before her visit, right? So, and now cardinals are an immense carrier of spirit energy from the spirit world. And all of a sudden, after my mom dies, we have these two cardinals that never leave us ever. They're never, every day they arrive. Then we're looking at other, mystical experiences and reading about other stuff. So I said, okay, number one, the gateway was writing to her. And I invited her without her ever visiting. I said, Mom, if you ever want to visit me, I'd love to have you. Every night I'm writing that. So that's a gateway. Then we start to really appreciate the cardinals. And me and I are talking about these cardinals. And we're going, oh my God, the cardinals, Mom, there's Dad, there's Mom. We're getting excited. That's a gateway, right? Because they know that we're communicating about them. And then I did the ultimate. On January 20 or December 24th of last year, the day before Christmas, I'm burning with energy. I've got to do something for Mom. I've got to honor her in some way bigger than what I've done. I have posted on Facebook hundreds of pictures and stories about my mom. We have 1,000 people liking, 800 people commenting, but I needed to do something even deeper, more real. So we have a courtyard. And I took away, I don't know, it might have been 50 to 60 pavers from the middle of the courtyard. I took them all away. I dug the deepest freaking garden I could dig. I hired this landscape guy to come over and to fill it with excellent soil. And then we planted 4 hibiscus bushes and 1 hibiscus tree. Now, the 4 hibiscus bushes were from my mom. They are now so huge, guys. They have grown. We haven't fertilized. We haven't done anything. They explode with blooms every day. The 3 of the 4 are probably about 4 feet high. They started out about this tall. This is a year, right? They've grown. And again, a gateway, right? We're welcoming them. We're saying we honor you. We love you. We're never going to forget you. We want you around us, and so in this experience, what has happened with me is the mourning, MOURNING, has turned into, most of the time, this glorious mourning, MRRNING, where I am celebrating my mom every morning. We're talking about her all the time. I'm looking for reasons to bring her up, in conversations, just in private conversations with friends, not with clients or any of that kind of stuff. If people ask me, I tell them. But I really believe, and I would love our audience to try this. I don't care how long your loved one has been passed over, but if you want to open up that gateway, think, write in a journal, make a small garden inside if you don't have someplace outside. It doesn't take a lot. But what we're doing is we're doing it in their memory. I have my mom's photos all over my office, all over my home. There isn't a room you walk into. And then in January of this year, my dad passed away. So then we added this beautiful hibiscus tree to the garden that's all for Dad. And then we have Dad's pictures all over the place, in the car, in the house, and I really believe that this is why they continue to visit. The other thing, there's something, that is widely quoted, and it's called the still small voice within. And that can be interpreted in a million different ways, however people want to interpret it. The way I interpret it is that is the spirit world. That is much more than intuition. So I open the crown chakra every morning and I call upon the still small voice within to guide me to make better decisions, to make better choices. And you would not believe the number of times per day that I would be going in the old David Essel direction, which isn't always right, okay? I'm usually a very snap decision maker. And all of a sudden I found myself that I'm slowing down. And do we have time to tell a story about my dad's death?
Go for it.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, so my mom and I were close our whole life. She was the animal lover. She taught me how to love animals. She taught me about nature. She was so compassionate. We used to tease her and call her Mother Teresa because she truly was coming from that energy. My dad was the opposite. He was an accountant. He was very level-headed. As a matter of fact, his nickname was Steady Eddie Essel because he was always steady. When I was about 14 years of age, I was a big basketball junkie, and I asked him, can I move the car down the driveway so I could shoot? And he said, absolutely. Of course, I didn't have a license. I opened the car door. I put it in neutral. It was a stick drive back in the 60s. I'm looking as I'm driving down. I didn't pay attention that the door was open, and I'm going right by the basketball pole. And you know what happens next. You know exactly what the door gets ripped off. And the next thing I do is I look into the living room, and there's my dad seeing the whole thing from the living room window. I was petrified. I didn't even want to go in the house. I'm sitting there scared out of my mind. I finally go in the house. My father looks at me and he said, looks like we need a new car door. That was his approach. Now when I was really little, there was spanking back then and all that kind of stuff. But as I got older, I started to see this stuff in my dad that wasn't normal for me because I'm highly emotional, many times highly irrational, especially younger. And my dad was always like this. My mom and I communicated with our love of nature and animals and all that our whole life. My dad and I had a loving relationship, but it wasn't tight. It wasn't close at all. And he would say the same thing probably until Father's Day of last June, almost a year ago. Me and I went up to see my dad, and we spent 4 days with him. And I got a chance to spend over an hour with my dad one-on-one, telling him, crying. I cried, he cried, sharing things that I never told him. He said to me, he goes, David, he goes, even at 94, before your mom died, we would talk and say, we're not really sure we were good parents. We don't even know if we did a good job. And I go, Dad, at 94, let me put your heart at rest. You guys were phenomenal. I was a challenge for you guys. I know it, but you didn't have a book on how to deal with such a highly sensitive addict at 12, for God's sake. You guys did incredible. But let me tell you what happens next. 6 months later, we're racing to Syracuse, New York. We had to drive for specific reasons because my dad had one request when he died. He said, all I want is my 3 children with me. We drove as fast as we could, and we missed his death. I took it so personally. I blame myself. He asked for one thing, and I didn't pull it off. My brother tried to console me that night. We got in hours after he died. Mia tried to console me. Everyone was trying. It would not work until the next thing happened, which is one of the wildest things that I could ever imagine, is that I was given 2.5 hours to be with my father alone after he died. I got up on the bed. I got right next to him and was holding him, crying hysterically, asking him to forgive me for blowing it. Now I get on top of my father and I'm holding his face. I am crying hysterically all over him. And I'm telling him how much I love him. And this is going on for over an hour, hysterical tears. I am so sorry. And then it switched. And all of a sudden, guys, I started screaming to my dad that I want to be more like him, that I'm going to take his legacy of all of his emotional strength that I don't have, his compassion I have, his faith I have, but I can still go deeper in faith, but his emotional control, his ability to love the homeless and work with them and not get tied up in any type of victimhood, or, he was a real man. He was pure German. He was pure strength, but he just never really said much. He was a very quiet man, but he was full of integrity. And I said to him, I am pulling your legacy. I am going to do things I've never done in my life before, Dad. I am going to be just like you. Finally, Dad. 2.5 hours go by. My brother was able to come in. Mia was able to come in. I went home that night. I had an experience of my dad in the hotel room. We're sitting in bed looking at photos we had taken of him after he had passed. We see me grabbing onto him and holding him. We see all this intense emotion coming out of me. And the next thing I know, I look to the left and I see this energy next to the TV in the hotel room. And I'm going, Dad, is that you? And there was this massive rush of energy. I mean, so intense, I could hardly handle it. He was coming at me with all of this love. It was so crazy intense. I jumped out of bed. I went to the bottom of the bed. I put my hands together and I started praying gratitude to God that my father was visiting me. The day after he died, he was full blown. You could feel it was Ed Essel. It was so freaking amazing. I'm crying hysterically again. I'm crying. I'm saying, I wish so much I had a chance to see you, Dad, to speak to you before you died. I know I got 2.5 hours on your body. I know you're coming to me right now with love. I just still wish I could have been with you when you passed, Dad. That's all I wanted. And then the next morning at 6:30 a.m., I get shaken and woken out of bed with this message in my head. David, please pay attention to what we're going to tell you. The reason that your father passed before you got here was because your emotional energy was so high. You may have interrupted his passing over. You may have created such emotional upset that he didn't know what to do, and he could have struggled deeply as he was passing. So we waited, and we allowed him to go, and we waited for you to be with him. And we gave you this gift of 2.5 hours. That is your gift, where you were able to do everything you needed to do, say everything you needed to say that it would have never worked if he was still alive. David, he could not have handled it. So please realize that this is a gift that you were given. First, with your time alone with him. And then second, when he visited you last night in the hotel room. Please be at peace. That was the end of the message. And I want to tell you, it made the biggest difference in the world. My mourning and grief with my dad is 1/3 of what happened with my mom. My dad still visits us every day as a cardinal. Or the other day I had to make a decision. And all of a sudden I realized that the decision was not to respond. That's Ed Essel. David Essel would have responded right away. Ed Essel would have said, let's take a pad of paper and pen. Let's do a pro and con list. You don't have to get back to them right away. Take a couple days. My dad was so logical, right? And all of a sudden, I'm just pure emotion, man. I mean, you can tell this is all, I am just out there, high emotion, high sensitivity. And he was the opposite. And what a blessing for him to be sharing his gift as he has passed on. I feel the changes. People have told me, boy, you've really changed. We see you're level-headed now, much more so than you were a year ago. And I was so excited to come on your show, because how many shows would celebrate these kind of stories? How many shows would give a guest like myself the opportunity to share this kind of depth? Too many people don't believe. They're afraid to believe. They're petrified to believe. And I was always a believer, but I just had no experience to back my belief system. I just believed because I had faith, right? Faith is belief in the yet unseen. I was just living on faith. And now I've got faith, and I've got so many experiences that are still going on. And I am loving my mom and dad. And I mean this from all my heart, more than I ever have. They have touched me in their death at levels that they could have never reached me in life. And please pay attention, our listeners, please pay attention to this. You may have had a tough relationship with your mom and dad, but there's ways that we can redirect that even when they're passed on. And the other thing I want to mention is that if you're like me, even though I'm a freaking counselor for 43 years, I never opened up to my dad. I was afraid that he wouldn't get it. He wouldn't understand me. I'm so different. I come from a different mold, all this kind of stuff. But that 1 hour I had with him on Father's Day last year in June told me I was completely wrong. He got everything I said. Everything.
You know what, David, I think it's cool how you can talk about these things and put them into like a real life situation. I think a lot of people shy away from this stuff because, you know, I've heard it called the woo-woo, right? Anytime you're dealing with the paranormal or an angel or a ghost or an entity or anything like that, or if somebody can connect with these types of spirits or has something happen to them, people tend to call it the woo-woo, which to me is kind of a negative connotation anyway, because it makes it sound like you're kind of out there in outer space, right? And you're just
crazy.
nuts.
Could I say crazy, Kelly?
Crazy.
Sure.
But it's really cool how you find that more and more people are having experiences like yours and are accepting it for what it is. Because honestly, in the big scheme of things, we have no idea about the universe that we live in, right? We have no clue about what is going on around us. And so why would you not be open to all of these other ideas? Why would you be so close? And that's my one issue with religion, is it's so constructed and so rigid. And you got to do A to get to B, to get to C, to get to D, or you're not going to get to E, right? All of these rules. And I don't feel like the universe, I feel like the universe has rules, but I also feel like these rules are not as rigid as we make them out to be. I feel like there are ways that the universe communicates with us and helps us. And if we get it, then the light comes on, right? If you don't get it, then you're like, you know, nothing's happening. Manifestation isn't real. Ghosts aren't real. UFOs aren't real. It's all bullshit, but it's not. You know what I'm saying? It's
all real.
It's all real. And it's very cool to hear somebody like yourself, this very, what I want to say, level-headed, you know, person that's written all these books and has, I guess, all of this, what am I trying to say? Kind of a, you know, you've kind of got some backing behind you, right? Because of your books and your motivational speakers. You've got all this clout, all this credibility. Thank you, James. But in the same breath, you just sat here and told us that you've had 2 paranormal experiences and that you have a paranormal experience every single day.
Every day. We feel them. Like, it's the craziest thing, you know, but we actually feel them around us. Mia has said, I swear, 100 times in the last 3 or 4 months, Dad is holding me right now. Like she feels his essence so deeply. She can feel his arms around her. You know, I can feel him come through and guide me, as I mentioned, with decision making. You know, I feel my mom all the time. She was just joyous. I mean, that's all she was. She was just joyous. And so to have this is incredible, you know, and I just so appreciate Kelly and James, you guys, you know, again, allowing us to share, because, you know, we need the straw that breaks the camel's back. We all do. We need that one more story, that one more example. And then we go, oh, wait a minute, this is the 10th person I've heard. Maybe I should start to think differently, you know? So that's what I love about your show. This is rocking that we get a chance to go here.
Yeah, I agree. I've so enjoyed listening to both of your stories that you even kind of covered, you know, you talked about grieving, and that's how you dealt with grief. And I know that grief is different for everybody, but I think you've given some really good advice as far as opening up a gateway and trying to reconnect with those who have passed on if you have unresolved issues.
That's right. You know, I did a celebration of life as a minister probably about 6 months ago to a couple that I married in 2000. So the wife died in 2022. You know, they were together for 10, 12 years. And I got to tell you the wildest thing. So my mom had already passed when I went to do the celebration of life. And we walk into the room and there's no one in the room. It's all these big circular tables. And the very first table you walk into is not a crossword puzzle, just a regular puzzle that you put together little pieces. It's a freaking cardinal. And I'm there to do a celebration of life. And cardinals are one of the most powerful spirit animals or spirit birds. It represents the loved one. And I'm going, oh my, and my buddy Chuck, his wife Heather is the one that died. And Chuck comes walking in. And I don't know if it was me or someone else pointed to the table and said, look at this. And when Chuck came in, I go, brother, you've got to see this. You know, like this is what are the odds? Some person that was at that center did the puzzle and just left it there. It wasn't a church. It wasn't and we walked in, and right away it lifted his spirits, you know, like, because he connected the cardinal with his wife, Heather. And if you Google, and this is for all of our viewers and listeners, if you Google spirit animals, who are the animals that represent individuals who have passed over? Hawks are huge. We have hawks that fly over our house, blue jays, even pigeons, for gosh sake, sparrows, cardinals. Read about them all. They've got some magical properties if we're willing to pay attention. You know, but one thing you said, and again, one of the problems with organized anything is that they have something they're going after: control, money. There, you know, every organization, there's a gig, there's an agenda. Okay, so you have to be more open-minded than the agenda you're walking into. You have to be more open-minded. I don't care if this organization, this religion, this spiritual practice, is whatever it is. I don't care if they've been around 1,000 years or 2,000 years or 2,500 years, right? It doesn't matter. If they're telling you that there are strict rules about the afterlife, how the hell do they know? And let me mention this, because this is a powerful quote. The Dalai Lama, in one of his own books, in his own words, says this: as the leader of the Buddhist nation, we teach reincarnation as a fact. I have been teaching it. My predecessors taught it. I will continue to teach it, but I must make this important point. We do not know if it's real. We teach it because we believe it is, but we have no proof that I can share with you to tell you reincarnation is an actual thing. We do not know. Now think about that. That's the leader. If you don't want to call it a religion, call it a spiritual practice, a religion, a philosophical way of living, whatever. There's the leader that's saying, we teach it, but we're not quite sure because we have no proof. And that's how I felt. I taught that you could communicate with the other side. I taught it because I believed it, until I had that real powerful experience when people would say, well, can you prove it? The answer is no. Now I can. And I have to tell you that having her head on my chest was everything. It made me know I was conscious. And then I was able to, if you want to say, enjoy the ride, knowing that this is real. And you know, my mom would use words like, oh, honey. That's the word she used all the freaking time with me, you know? So it wasn't like there was these words I didn't understand. It was like, that's my mom. Right. That is my mom.
Wow.
Yeah, David, I just want to tell you, thank you for sharing that very personal story. Both of those.
Both of them. Absolutely. We didn't even get on the fact of grieving and mental health, and that's fine because we're out of time. But David, I think you are probably one of our best guests. I sure enjoy listening to both of your stories. I thank you for sharing the paranormal with us, right? Because I mean, like I said, and like me and James talk about all the time, that's the main reason why we do the podcast, is to give people the opportunity to share their story and know that people believe you. We believe you. We have no reason not to believe you.
Well, and you know, again, I remember the first time TJ Torriello, who you guys know well as my publicist, reached out to me and said, hey, there's podcasts they want you on. I said, what's the name of it? And they go, this crazy shit podcast. I said, what? That's the name of the podcast? He goes, yeah. I go, yes, that's perfect for me.
Well, thank you again for coming on, David. I appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Kelly, James, I love you guys. It's always so fun to be with you, and don't ever hesitate. I'm available whenever you need me.
You got it. Thank you.
You know, Kel, when it kind of validates why we have our show for what just happened for David.
Well, that was kind of unexpected, though. Wasn't expecting that.
And so that was cool, you know. And what was, you know, that says a lot. He feels comfortable enough now with us to share that with us, because we talk about this all the time. People just don't run around telling other people stuff like this. And for him to share those two stories with us, and they become so emotional, you know? I mean, those long pauses, people, you know, were like just, I mean, if you couldn't feel the emotion, you know?
Yeah.
That was a really good show.
And just him wanting to share and stay in line with kind of, I guess, the essence of our podcast. And mental health is some crazy shit too, obviously, mental health.
Right.
But for him to go to the paranormal, I mean, this is a guy who was an author, a motivational speaker, a life coach, you know, all these credentials behind him. And then he shares his, not one, but 2 paranormal experiences. That's some crazy shit.
Yeah. You know, and that's cool, you know.
Yeah.
Like that's why we're here, people. You know, if you want to share a story and you don't think anyone's going to believe you, that's why we're here. We're here to help you get your story out.
Here to believe you.
Yeah. Well, and you know, don't make it sound like we just believe everything all the time, you know. We're not fucking gullible.
That's what they said in Ghostbusters.
Sorry.
I was quoting a movie.
I got defensive, my bad.
I can tell.
Hey, man. I have to stick up for us.
We don't believe everybody. We've had guests come on where we're, you know, raising an eyebrow.
Yeah.
But because we don't judge, we believe that you believe it, right? Hey.
And like, if you don't believe it, go check it out for yourself. You know,
go check it out.
Yeah, if we trigger a curiosity in you, that's good too.
You know, like I said, it was just, you know, I thank David for sharing, and I'm 100% positive he will be back.
Yeah, he'll be back.
Definitely. All right, let's do some random bullshit.
All right, what do you got? Or did you want to give me something? You want to drop me with a question?
I want to drop you with a question. So I want to hear about this place that you went to. Did we already talk about you going to Mexico and you going to this place that was 45 feet deep in the ground or whatever? Did we talk about that?
Oh, yeah.
So let's talk about that, because I have questions. So set them up and tell them what it was.
Okay, so on this farmer's property.
Well, tell them where you were.
Oh, sorry. I went to Cancun.
Okay.
And so while we were down there, we went to a place called the Rio Secreto, Secret River. Okay. So my Spanish is not that great. Okay. So the story is that it's a farmer's land. He's from Mayan descent, which is cool. So he's out hunting iguana. All right. So they're chasing this iguana. It falls into this crack. They look down. They see this cave. Okay. They start exploring down under the ground and stuff. They come back out and they call the Mexican authorities, who come and explore these caves. It's a system. There's like 5 fingers that go off in these caves. Okay. Each one has different levels of water. Their difficulty depending on the season, how much rain there is. You know, there may be more puddles. Some you can't even access places because they go underwater and stuff. It was very cool. So in these caves, I don't even remember how far back we were. I know we were 45 feet deep. But we go back there, and she tells us before we go back there that they had found a skeleton that was 4,500 years old. A woman in her, I think she said she was in her 30s. Okay. It was crazy how far this person got back in this cave. I don't know if she had torch or what, but to get that far back and then to have no light and to die back there, that's crazy.
But you don't know if she died back there. Somebody could have taken her body back there.
They could have, but that would have been a heck of a journey back there for something like that. And that's a good question. I don't know if they ever thought about that. And then about I don't know how many years later, in one of the other sections of this cave, they found another skeleton which was about 1,700 years old. and this was a girl of about 17.
So are they saying that back in the day, 4,500 years ago, 1,700 years ago, that the Mexicans in this area inhabited these caves? They were basically cave dwellers?
No. That's a good question. There was no signs of them inhabiting these caves. So they don't know exactly why these women were down there. But they represent two of the oldest known human remains in the Americas.
Wow.
And that was really cool to see that, and to be just, and then there's a documentary. Thank you. Gosh, man, I can't speak. On it. And I'll have to get the name and put it on our website. And it's funny because our guide is actually in part of it. But they talk about how they found the body, the condition it was in, all this stuff. It's supposed to be very good.
Interesting. 4,500 feet deep is that's a long ways down. So it wasn't a man-made cave. It was a natural cave that had five fingers going off of it. Yeah. Probably made by water.
Yes. A lot of underground caves in Mexico, there's a lot of water. And you'll see them collapse, and they call them cenotes. And they're just deep holes with water in them. And they'll maybe underground river or underground stream that fills these, or they may just be rainwater or groundwater that accumulates in these. In fact, the Maya, there's a story of them being so rich, and this of course comes from the Spaniards, so who knows how exaggerated it is. But they said the king, they would cover him in honey and then cover him in gold dust, and he would jump into one of these cenotes, and then they would throw all these gold, cups and plates into the cenote as an offering to whatever god it was. I don't remember. So it's one of those treasures that they're always looking for, this cenote with all this gold at the bottom of it.
That is very interesting. See, I learned something. I did not know that. And see, there you go. That is what we call random bullshit.
Yeah, because you don't know the random bullshit I may know.
That is very true. That is very true. And speaking of random bullshit that you may not know our website, which is not really random, but it was a good segue. It's www.thatsomecrazyshitpodcast.com. There you can check out our social media and listen to past episodes. I'm going to call it out again.
I know.
Yeah,
James doesn't do his.
James said he had a blog at one point in time. I remember he's like, I'm going to blog, Kelly. I'm going to blog.
I'm going to blog the hell out of it.
I think he blogged like once, man. I'm going to blog.
It was a good one, though.
He was all excited about it, too. And then when he realized that, God, this is kind of work. I don't like blogging.
I like it. I just don't know why I don't do it. Because I have all these ideas.
And you should just write them down, because maybe you just don't like to write. You have to like to write to blog.
That's true. I never thought about maybe I don't like to write.
Well, maybe you don't like to write.
Well, I've never written before, too. So this is a thing I need to work on.
So, do you have a blog?
I do have a blog, but apparently I don't write on it. So now I'm going to do the writing part.
So, okay, since this is going to be recorded and we'll get it for evidence.
Are you evidence at the trial?
At the trial, are you going to blog soon?
I will blog soon.
Like?
Well, I don't know. Let's say 3 weeks.
It's not soon, friend. 3 weeks?
2 weeks. 2 weeks.
I mean, if you want it to be 3 weeks, that's fine. That's not my idea of soon.
I know that's not your idea.
If somebody said, you'll get your package soon.
In the day of Amazon, I know it's tomorrow.
It's like, Soon it'll be tomorrow. Yes. So
I'm still Pony Express, people.
you're not even Pony Express, babe. Okay. Anything's taking 3 weeks, man. I'm telling you, this day and age.
Hey, isn't there something messed up with the transportation chain now or something?
I have no idea. All my packages come on time.
This was not coming from Amazon.
It's true. Okay, you need 3 weeks. We'll check back.
All right.
We'll check back in 3 episodes.
3 episodes.
To see how you are with the blog. That would be 3 weeks, my friend.
All right, then.
All right?
I'm confident. So until next time.
Yeah, it's that time.
So until next time, people, keep your minds open.